Welcome to the Built Not Born podcast presented by Edge Leadership Academy. I'm your host and founder of Edge Leadership Academy, David Kitchen, and together we're going to spend some time with some of the top leaders in their fields to figure out what built them into the leaders they are today and get an inside look at their processes, habits, and philosophies. Thanks for joining me on the podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, share, leave a review so we can continue to reach as many aspiring leaders as possible. Also, be sure to join us on our website, www.edgeleadershipacademy.com, for access to all of our free content and resources for leaders and those wanting to be leaders. Be sure to follow us on social media so we can keep the conversation going. I'm fired up to be part of this project, and I'm looking forward to diving into this episode. Leaders are built, not born. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Built Not Born podcast. This is one of those episodes that you mark on your calendar and you really circle it. It's something you're looking forward to. We were connected through some mutual friends, and I think this is going to be something that adds a lot of value to a lot of people. So today we're joined by Coach Chuck Pagano. For those of you who might live under a rock or not be part of the football lifestyle, Coach Pagano is a wealth of knowledge, and he has 35 years of coaching experience. 20 of those years were spent at the NFL level. He was the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, was with the Baltimore Ravens and all over, and really is just the kind of guy that is someone you'd love to have an opportunity to sit down and talk to and just pick his brain for a moment. So we're really lucky to get some of his time today. So without further ado, Coach Pagano, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thanks for being here. And if you could just share a little bit of your background and who you are and what we're in for today.
Yeah, absolutely. Really appreciate the opportunity, David. I love what you're doing. When you talk about leadership and things like that, and we had a brief conversation before this. It's a lot of different styles, but I'm really excited to be a part of this podcast. And a little bit about my background. From Colorado, I got into coaching. My dad was a high school football coach for a number of years. Very successful, won a couple state championships at Fairview High School in Boulder. Me and my little brother both played for my dad, and he you being in sports and coaching and things like that, he tried to talk both of us out of it, when we graduated college. But it's all we knew, it's from, picking up jocks and socks and towels in the locker room to eventually playing college football and whatnot. So, but went to University of Wyoming, played there, graduated there. And then my first coaching job was at USC, Southern Cal. Ted Tollner was my first head coach, gave me my first opportunity, and still friends to this day. Me and his son Bruce is kind of my agent, my go-to guy. He was going to school at the time there, and 2 years there, and then I went to University of Miami with Jimmy Johnson, 86, GA'd there, and then my first full-time job was at Boise State, 87 and 88. Went to East Carolina in 89. UNLV, we have that in common. I was there 90, 91. Went back to East Carolina. Bill Lewis left, went to Georgia Tech. Steve Logan was on that original staff that I was on. He got the head job. So I had an opportunity to go back with Coach Logan. So I was there 3 more years. Then Butch Davis got the Miami job. So it was my second opportunity to go back to UM with Butch. So I was there 95 to 2000. We kind of rebuilt that program. Coach did an amazing job. He's a phenomenal recruiter and had a great experience there. And then he left, he got the Cleveland job. And so he asked me if I wanted to go to Cleveland, coach secondary there. And I never really thought about, the NFL. I always kind of treated every job that I had like it was going to be my last. And so, just it was a golden opportunity. And so we went to the Browns. We were there 4 years. We got let go there, and then we went to the Raiders for 05 and 06. Ran out of a contract there. Norv Turner, who I've got great respect for, and phenomenal leader and coach for a long time, gave me a job in 05, and then he was let go, and Art Shell was the coach in 06, and he was let go. God rest Mr. Davis's soul. He, just win, baby. We didn't win enough games, so that's why those guys were in and out of there. But I went back to college in 07 with Butch. I was a defense coordinator at University of North Carolina, 07. And it's funny because, I spent 17 years in college, then we jump to the NFL, and we have great experience in Cleveland, even though it didn't work out. my kids were young. They loved, Strongsville, Ohio. It was, the dog pound, all that stuff. And so it was really cool. And then we went out to Oakland. It was a little bit different, we had to rent a home, do a local move because we sold the house, this, that, and the other. So my wife's like, man, I'm done with this NFL stuff. Can we go back to college? So we go back, with Butch, North Carolina. So we're not there 6 months. I haven't seen her. I haven't seen my kids. I haven't seen my wife, recruiting, academics, the job, this, that, and the other. And she's like, hey, do you think we can get back in the NFL? Tina's her name, and she's the best. She did a heck of a job raising my 3 daughters. And I said, you got to make up your mind, decide what you want to do. And fortunately, I was lucky that John Harbaugh got the Baltimore job in 2008 and had a very good friend on that staff, Jerry Rossberger, reached out to me and asked if I'd be interested in coming up and talking to those guys. And then, got on with the Ravens, and really just because of that experience in Baltimore, coached the secondary for 3 years. And then I was fortunate to be at the right place at the right time and got the coordinator's job then in 2011. Quick story. I know I'm going. You said it was okay if I rambled, but
that's it. Let it rip, Coach. Your mic.
We made it to the AFC Championship game that year. So we're up in Foxborough, and we're in a dogfight, obviously, against the Patriots. And it's late fourth quarter. There's a couple minutes left. We're down 3, and Joe Flacco's taking us down the field. And, he throws a dart to Lee Evans in the corner of the end zone. And we all think, shoot, touchdown. We're going to the Super Bowl, And a D-back from New England knocked that ball out. You may remember. And so it was third down. And then Billy Cundiff trots on. It's a chip shot. And he missed the field goal, unfortunately. But the long and short of it is Indy I didn't even have any idea. Indy still had a job opening. We're still looking, this, that, and the other. But if we win that game, I don't even have an opportunity to talk to them because of the rules with the NFL. And they weren't going to wait. They'd been open for a long, long time, So we lose the game, go get home 3-4 in the morning. Get in the next morning. Harbaugh calls me in his office and says, Indy called, they want to talk to you. I said, about what? Because I had truly no idea. He goes, about their head job. And I said, call him back. Tell him I'm not interested. I love it here, coach. He goes, you crazy? He goes, you have to talk to them. I said, no, I don't. And he's like, you want me to call your wife? I said, no, I'll call her. But I said, can I talk to Ozzie? He's going to tell you the same thing, Chuck. So long and short of it was, I got an opportunity of a lifetime, went up there. Ryan Grigson was the GM and met with Mr. Irsay and stuff, and it worked out. So the stars had to line up perfectly, for that to happen. And it was a great opportunity, great 6 years there. And then sat out 2018. Al Riveron, who's the head of the officials at the NFL, threw me a lifeline, and I went and did a consulting gig with the officials for a year and had a great experience working in New York at 345 Park Avenue, and just a couple of days a week, no pressure, no stress, just watch the games, like a fan, and just learned a lot. It was a great experience, and then was fortunate enough to get the Bears defensive coordinator's job in 2019 after Vic took the Denver job. Very, very lucky, and obviously a great organization, and founding father George Stanley Hallis, who they started football in 1920. So Virginia McCaskey, George's daughter, still living to this day. 96 years old, go to every game. Yeah, really, really fortunate. And then after 2020, like everybody else, I was like, I turned 60. I always kind of thought 60. I always had kind of 60 in my head as a number when I'd want to shut things down. And as spending as much time as you did coaching and stuff, the sacrifices that your family makes, so for 35, 36 years, my wife and my kids sacrificed a lot, and so it was, I was in a situation, health-wise, financial-wise, where, I got to, go on my own terms and walk away. and it's probably, best decision I've ever made, because I'm giving back to them, and spending a ton of time with my family. And I've got 3 daughters and 3 granddaughters and a grandson, and so I'm blessed. I'm very, very lucky, and I had great mentors the entire way. Uh, learned a ton from every one of those head coaches and coordinators and assistant coaches, a bunch of people, and so I'm blessed.
It's so funny whenever I hear people, because I didn't ask you this question before. Usually a lot of people on podcasts, they get background sheets on people. I didn't ask you, and so to hear you naming all these other leaders that you were around and all these different things, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That's why this man is the leader that he is, because everyone has those influences, like you said, that pour into you and give you different perspectives on things. But I think one of the main nuggets that I want people to pull out of what you just said there was that you treated every job like it was your last every time you came in, because as high performers and people that do quickly rise in the ranks, or have unique talents or gifts or strengths, whatever they are, it becomes sometimes this destination syndrome, where we're starting to look ahead and we're starting to get distracted and get pulled in different directions. But it sounds to me like you were just able to run your race, and it ultimately led you to where you were supposed to be. Is that kind of a correct assumption?
Yeah, that whole grass is greener, and I get that. And um, the this generation of players and young people, and it's what you just described. I mean, I call it the Burger King mentality. They want it now, they want it their way, you know, and but you got to earn it. And so I truly, I was fortunate because I grew up in a football family. I grew up with a dad that was a football coach, a head coach, and so I got to watch him, all the time, and how he did things and how he led, and but then mostly how he worked, and so again, you got to earn it. And so I learned early on that, because you get to see a lot, you see it different ways and different styles, and some really, really good, and some where you say, you know what, that's not me, I'm not going to do it like that. And so I think, um, if you're always worried about what's next, and you're spending all your time, on the phone network and do this, that, and the other, you're probably going to need another job, because you're not going to be very good at the one you have. So I just decided, okay, keep your head down, stay in your lane, know your role, bust your butt, work your tail off, and, do things the right way, treat people right. And, things will work out. I think as long as you treat people the right way and you work hard, I think more good is going to come out of it than bad. So,
It's
um, you know, and I didn't, you got buddies and you get on the phones, things like that, but I just always tried to do the best job I could where I was, and when opportunities were there, it was always a family decision on what was best for for the family, and my wife and kids and stuff.
Absolutely. And it's crazy, I still have coaches that call me and ask me, and younger coaches that have either interned or are looking for that first graduate assistant position or whatever it is, and they say, how do I get to X, Y, and Z? How do I do this? How do I do that? And it's the answers that you just gave. And so for anyone listening, if you don't believe it from me, please believe it from this man. It's bust your butt. It's do the best you can at the place that you're at. And I joke about it, but it's simple, not easy, right? People say, what is it? What's the answer? The answer is simple, but it's not easy to do. It's not easy to not get distracted and look over here and do this and do that. But if you can keep your head down and work and do the right things, and like you said, treat everyone the right way along the way, the opportunities are going to come. I mean, none of my opportunities as a coach that I got were because I was networking or because I was doing the right things in that regard. It was because I knew somebody that had a previous relationship with me and felt comfortable calling me and saying, hey, I'm interested in bringing you along, or whatever it is. So it all comes back to people. It's people.
No, it's the relationships, because there's a lot of coaches. It's a big fraternity, but it's small.
Yeah. Yep.
And so, because all it takes is, one phone call from one person, because people are going to vet you, forever's listening to this thing, and they're, going to be interviewing this, that, and the other. They're going, they're at a job and they're thinking of whatever, but it's about relationships and treating people the right way and doing things the right way, because all it takes is one call. And if that person who's vetting you or the decision makers, they get on the phone with one person and say, I don't know. I'd maybe look into, they ain't going to really say anything, but you can just tell by a tone in a guy's voice and how he reacts,
Right.
and then you lose the opportunity,
Mhm.
because what goes around comes around. And like I said, it's a real small fraternity. And so as long as you just, the check the boxes, the abilities boxes,
Mhm.
reliability, accountability, dependability. We used to do it with players. We said, okay, how many of the abilities does this guy have? And the same thing with coaches when hiring coaches. They want great teachers, communicators, smart guys, this, that, and the other. But all those other things, all the abilities, they matter.
Love that. Love that. See, I've never heard it put that way. That's phenomenal. Let's ride this wave a little bit, because I think we're going down a path that I'd love to pull a little bit more of insight out from you. And that's when you're looking at people that maybe are up for that first job. So maybe we've done all the things correctly, and we're in that situation where we're getting put in our first leadership role. Like what would your culture 101 kind of checklist or curriculum look like? Like if you're a first time head coach, what's your checklist and 101 to kind of get things off the ground from a culture standpoint?
Oh man. So I recently just did another little deal with some coaches, and we talked through this whole deal, and we talked about identity, culture, and process. And then when you talk about leadership. Matter of fact, Steve Logan gave me this. Um, I want to read it so I don't mess it up. But he called it the golden standard of leadership, and it's willing and able to confront your peers. Inherent in this dynamic is a tough part of the leader, being able to uphold that standard daily. So, like when we started, our program, and just to elaborate a little bit on that, because you're talking about the guy asked you, okay, I've been the best player, this, that, and the other, and we're trying to, develop leadership as well, and develop leaders in our locker room, and coaches, your coordinators and assistant coaches, and trying to help them develop so that when an opportunity does come around, they have all the tools necessary to go and get that job and then be successful at that job. But accountability, when we talked about the abilities, accountability is huge. And I think that's where most failed. Where I struggled sometimes was with accountability. Never myself. Because you know, I'd show up every single day, and that's one of the deals you have to be able to do is you got to bring your A game. You got to be you first and foremost. You can't be anybody else. You got to be yourself. You know, and remind me to talk about Tony Dungy and a story he told me about death by inches. Okay,
Definitely.
I'll get to it, but it deals with being yourself. But then that accountability part, because we've all coached a bunch of great players. I mean, great players, but they were quiet, and they didn't want to, be that guy. Didn't either have the time or the wherewithal, or didn't want to be that guy to go in the locker room and, tell somebody, somebody that that you're screwing up.
Right.
You're hurting a team, And I saw Ray Lewis, who's one of the greatest leaders and players of all time. You know, he was so selfless, And so when you talk about culture, um, you know, surround yourself with selfless individuals. Humility is huge,
Mhm.
but also guys that can hold themselves accountable, but then hold others accountable. But I'd always see him with this guy and this guy and this guy, and he'd take when guys were, just hustling to try to get out of the door, 5 o'clock, the bell rings, and it's time to go home. There's a bunch of them that went home, but he'd be grabbing guys and talking to them about the process and taking care of themselves and get in the training room and do this and do that, and things off the field, distractions, and how to do all that stuff. But the accountability thing is huge. Um, I've always been, and I learned this as a young man growing up in a football family and watching my dad. Relationships are huge. We talked about it before, and I think you have to be able to build relationships with people, and you have to be able to communicate. And love is part of that. And trust, loyalty, and respect. Those were the words that kind of upheld the shoe for us in Indy. Trust, loyalty, and respect. And when we first started there, the foundation that we were going to build this program on was going to be built on rock and not sand, because we knew storms are going to come. Life happens. I say this a lot. All right. Life's tough. As soon as you figure that out, it starts getting a lot easier. Because it isn't a bunch of cotton candy, Ferris wheels, unicorns, and all that stuff. It's going to be tough. And we knew that adversity was going to strike. So we wanted from day one, we wanted to build, our program, the foundation was going to be built on rock and not sand. So that week 4 in 2012, when, it's a bye week and I get some blood work done. Next thing you know, I'm getting a PICC line put in my arm and I'm being treated for leukemia. That, no one foresaw that. I inherited what was supposedly the worst team in the National Football League. Rookie head coach, rookie GM, rookie quarterback. We were ranked 32. We put it on a t-shirt. We had all the teams listed at the bottom, the camp t-shirt. How you do the camp t-shirt every year. Big deal. Number 32, Indianapolis Colts. So all the players, Peyton was gone, Dallas Clark, Gary Brackett, Jeff Saturday. I can go on and on and on. I mean, that first team meeting I had, it was like no rebuild. We're just reloading.
Right.
I said, you look around, we're missing some people, but by God, you're in this room for a reason. You're an NFL football player, and now you got the opportunity of a lifetime. And if I hear one person say the R word, because my owner was talking about rebuild, I was like, no, we're reloading, Jim. They just won a gazillion games, over the 14-year, 12-year span with Peyton at the helm. By God, we're going to do the same thing. And next thing you know, shoot, I missed 12 weeks. BA comes in the interim. He goes 9-3. We make the playoffs, and it's like, how does that happen? It's because of culture.
Yeah.
So I love this statement: culture eats strategy.
Every day.
Okay? So it's that foundation. It was about relationships. It was about trust. It was about loyalty, about respect. You got to work hard. Okay. We talked about coming in and earning your way every single day. You got to earn it. And, whether you get a key fob or use a finger to get in the door. I told them every day you hit punch in your code, or that thing goes up at the guard gate, and they let you in here. You need to look at yourself in the mirror and then look in that locker, and you got your jersey, you got a number, and you got a spot on an NFL roster. You do everything you can to never lose that. Right. Whatever that is, you got to do that day. You come in here every single day with that mindset, and then let's just work, and the 2 signs was that trust, loyalty, and respect. And then it was about the team. You've heard that before. We use it in Baltimore, the team. That wasn't me. That was Harbs. I don't know where Harbs got it, but it was always about the team. The culture was about us, US. So unity over self.
Love that.
And so when I talked about, selfless individuals, because as you know, especially in the National Football League, there's a lot of egos. There's only one football, and everybody wants it. Wide receiver, the running back, this tight end. Everybody wants. There's only one. Everybody wants. Draw up pressure, get certain guy a sack, get me a sack, get me some stats, blah blah blah, get me paid. So we went with this whole team deal and this whole, us. Unity over self. And I'm going to ask myself to be selfless. I'm going to ask you guys to do the same thing. Because really, when it comes down to it, it's about serving others. and was always big on servanthood leadership. We were, that's just, I think in my opinion, one of the only way to really do things.
Absolutely.
It wasn't about, wasn't going to be about me. It was going to be about us. It was about what can I do for, because I think part of that leadership deal is helping you, if you're on my staff, anybody on my staff, any of those players, is help them get where they want to get to, help develop them, and it's going to be tough love, that accountability thing. There's going to be some critical conversations. There's going to be some tough conversations. And it wasn't going to happen out in public.
Right.
We were going to be man to man. Okay, you got an issue with somebody, you're going to go to that guy. You're going to shut the door. You're going to sit down as grown men, and you're going to say, okay, this is what happened, and this is how what was said, and here's how it made me feel, and we're going to fix this thing.
Right.
We're shake hands and be able to move on. But I think that as far as starting a program out, and coming up with your identity and your process and the culture, we've used a lot of different things culture-wise, but.
Well, it sounds to me, Coach, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but it sounds to me like you set your culture. So you set your bedrock, right? You set your foundation of what we're going to be. This is who we're going to be, period. This is what our program's about. That's our stated culture, right? This is what we said we're about. And then on the other side, which is where I think people miss kind of, and I say there's your stated culture and then there's your experience culture. So you can say you're about, like you were saying, right? Accountability, relationships, trust, love, loyalty, respect, those things. If your experience culture isn't aligned with that, then you start to have cracks and then there's problems all over the place, right? So it sounds to me like everything that you did from all those words that you used, accountability, relationship, trust, loyalty, respect, you found ways to make them experienced on a daily basis for the players. So then it's like, oh no, we are who we say we are. Like we are about what we say we're about. And then it creates a common language, right? And that's almost like a bond. Is that kind of accurate?
No, it's funny because like I told all those players, I said, these relationships are for life. They're not just for, 1 year here, 2 years here, 3 years, whatever. Once you got me, you got me, so it's funny. When I get text messages or I get, whatever, because that culture you're talking about, those words, like our identity, we're going to be tough, smart, relentless, disciplined, and be passionate about the game and about playing for your brother. That was our identity. And we had to go practice that. Mm-hmm. And the culture we talked about, it was just reteaching it every single day, not a million slogans. You go down this hall, you got this slogan, this slogan, this slogan, and then guys, you kind of like, who are we?
Right.
And to change it because it's like, okay, what am I going to tell them today? And I had people that I could go to and say, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just find a different way to just reteach what you're talking about. And don't vacillate. Don't waver. Just keep reteaching it and find a different story, find a different whatever to keep doing that. Because we all get in those things where we think, I got to pull a rabbit out of a hat today to try to, we just got our asses kicked, and no, you come in and say, hey, we'll watch the tape, we're going to grade it. We're going to be brutally honest, with each other, call it like it is, the right way. We ain't MFing each other. We're not degrading. We're not going to demean anybody. We should say, hey, look, this is good ball and this is bad ball. We could get rid of the bad ball and this is how we're going to fix it. And so just keep reteaching that, day after day after day.
Absolutely. And Coach, there was two main things that I pulled out there. First, when you talk about relationships, man, I watched the interview with you and Pat McAfee. And you want to talk about relation? I mean, that's genuinely like two men that respect each other. He was excited to see you. So if anybody hasn't seen that interview, please watch it. It's only a couple minutes, but it's solid gold. I mean, that's entertainment. That's good stuff. But that's somebody, you earn that over time. Like that's not something that is just given because I say I care about you, right? That's something that you have to earn. And he genuinely felt that way about you, which is exciting for me. And then to hear you talk about the rest of this stuff, it's funny because you're literally outlining what we teach in our workshops. I mean, from making your stated culture clear, concise, honest, okay, and then being able to have it have multiple facets, right, and multiple avenues, but you're still reteaching the same message. Similar to, I sat down with a coach from Ohio State who's a good friend of mine, and he was talking about their culture has been the same for the past couple of years. The word is fight, and it just changes a little bit each year, what the fight looks like, how we're fighting, who we're fighting for, what we're fighting with, those types of things. But the word is the same, and it doesn't change. And then the third piece that I really love there was the accountability piece, is that you weren't calling people out, right? And I always say this, especially because I work with a lot of college kids. I say, guys, we have to understand the difference between calling people out and calling people up. Our feedback and our accountability should look like this. Hey, listen, we have high standards here. I expect you to meet these standards. I want you to be part of the success that we're going to have. But in order to do that, you have to do X, Y, and Z, and you got to do it better, and you got to do it with a sense of urgency, right? Now, obviously, you have to, mix your words a little bit, but that's what it should communicate. So to hear you say the way, you're holding all pro guys. These are the best coaches in the world, coaching the best players in the world, and you're still holding them accountable in a way that is respectful and calling them up to the standard, as opposed to calling them out on the carpet.
What you find out is they don't want it any other way. Now they may walk in there and then look at you like, so put the film on. I remember when I got benched my senior year at Wyoming, Rocky Long, who's one of my all-time favorite people and coaches, that I played for, and I never got to coach for him. But, well, yeah, 1 year as a student coach, but he benched me. I went up to his office, slammed the door. What do you think you're doing? He goes, you stink. You suck right now. And because Troy Robinson was the guy that was behind me at strong safety and sophomore. I said, you're putting Troy. He goes, you stink. And I knew it because I watch a film. We all watch a film, and he'd tell you, the film don't lie. So I could go two ways. I could go down the locker room, try to find somebody to throw a pity party with me, and poo-poo about it. I'm getting screwed, this, that, and the other. Or you look yourself in the mirror and say, yeah, you know what? I do stink. And I'm acting like, because I'm a senior, this, that, and the other. I ain't got to do the same things that I did as a younger player. But the veteran guys, it doesn't matter who it is. You may not like it. I got called into a bunch of meetings by a bunch of mentors and head coaches and things, and was told things that, I didn't want to hear, but I walked out there and I looked myself in the mirror and said, that's the truth. But that helped me. Right. But nobody does that for you. If we don't do that for each other and we don't hold ourselves accountable and hold each other accountable, like you said, in the right way, then we're not gonna develop, next year's leaders, the next team's leaders, or the leaders for, for your, I don't know if you have kids. Can't remember if you told me, you're too young probably. Stu, what are you, 29, you told me?
29, yeah.
That's when I got married. So got married on July 1st, had my first daughter on April 2nd. Do the math. No, but so that's so important, and so vital. And again, one of our other slogans was, just do simple better.
Love that.
So the guys can play and play fast, and I think it can go with anything, because like I said, culture eats strategy. We can come up with so many damn plays and have those call sheets that, or they don't even make paper that big, for a copy, to laminate them.
Right.
You couldn't call them. Those offensive coordinators I've had, they'd come in with those things. I'd be like, we can't call this in 5 games, and we got this offer. Well, we got Andrew Luck. Well, let's abuse Andrew because he's brilliant. He's got a photographic memory, Let's just abuse him and slow him down, because nobody knew. So he had to call the play, which took an hour, and then get all the young receivers that we were all, because we had rookie T.Y. Hill and Dwayne Allen, Kobe Fleener, all these guys. Nobody, and he wasn't there because of Stanford's rules.
Right.
So get the snap count, get the guys lined up. No, we're in this formation, not this one. Keep an eye on the play clock, ID the defense, reset the protection, and then run the play. So I was always like, just do simple better.
Right.
At the end of the day, like when you said this early on, right? It's easy, but it's hard.
Right.
Kind of what our mind meant, what we were talking about.
Yep.
It's about blocking, tackling, throwing, catching, just fundamentals and technique.
Simple, not easy.
Dude, yeah, simple, not easy, but let's just do all the little things better than everybody else and not beat ourselves.
Right. So when you're dealing with those young guys, coach, how do you get them to kind of shift that mindset? So like you talked about a Ray Lewis, you talked about some, and even you saw Peyton Manning towards the end there, or, Joe Flacco, like you see these guys that are focused on the process. How do you get the young guys to develop that mindset versus like that perception of I had one bad game, now that defines me? Like how do you kind of shift that in your young players?
That's the same thing. So, our process was in a game, it's 60 minutes, all you got, one play at a time, don't judge.
Mm-hmm. Don't judge. Okay.
Don't judge. Okay. So from day one, they heard that. When I talked about identity, culture, and process, that's going to be our process. So on a daily, once you get your routine, your daily process is, one treatment at a time, one meal at a time, one meeting, one walkthrough, one practice. And the game, like I said, 60 minutes, all you got, one play at a time, don't judge. So good play, move on. Bad play, move on.
Right.
Don't look at the scoreboard. All right, we're down 21 at half, Kansas City in the playoffs. Give the Newt Rockney, best Newt Rockney speech of all time. We go out, we got the ball in the third quarter. Luck throws a pick on the first play of the third quarter. They score, we're down 28. I'm thinking, holy crap, great job at halftime, But we talked about that from day one. There was no judgment. Mm-hmm. Don't look at the scoreboard. A good play, move on. A bad play, move on. Don't beat yourself up. Don't dwell on it. And sometimes success is a lot harder to handle, than failure, because of that complacency stuff. So that whole process, we beat that up day after day after day after day. You can call any of those players that I had over those 6 years or Chicago, and they said, when coach talked about process, I would hope every one of them would say 60 minutes, all you got, one play at a time, don't judge. Just keep chopping. They had a website here in Indy, chopping wood, because they make fun of me. Because if you just keep, going through whatever you're going through, adversity you're facing in life, whatever, if you don't put the axe down and you just keep swinging it, the tree's eventually going to fall. So that was ingrained in our players, and the judgment thing was huge, because as being around, especially young players, young people, they want to be that right now.
Right.
And it's a process, and there's going to be disappointment. We said never discouraged. Disappointed, okay, but never discouraged. Mm-hmm. I think there's a huge difference in those two words. Right. We can be disappointed, but we're going to go to work and we're going to fix it. We're not going to be discouraged. Call it the wildebeest. The wildebeest, when they just drop their head and they're crossing that river they cross every year, and them gators are eating them up. They just drop their head, and then it was like they're ready to die.
Right.
Give up.
Right.
So you can't do that. Like Ohio State, you fight. You got to have grit.
Yeah,
Grit was big with us too. We spent a lot of time when Angela Duckworth came out with that whole deal on grit and that study and that little YouTube. We took that and ran with that.
Yeah, and you have to, and it's the ability, for a lot of kids. I say this when coaches say, as a strength coach, like what was one thing that wasn't in your job description? I said, I teach perspective. I'm a professor in perspective. Like that's what I teach. And it's for young people being able to see if you are, at UNLV, we weren't getting 5-star kids, but we're getting 3-star guys. If you're walking in and you're a 3-star guy and you were all state, all this, all that, and you come in and camp's not going the way you want it to, are you looking at yourself and saying, hey, this is one bad scene in a movie, or is this a bad movie? And getting them to understand that, hey, you can't become that self-fulfilling prophecy, kind of like you said, where it's like, okay, things aren't going the way I want, so I'm going to shut down, I'm going to judge myself, and I'm going to pull back. And then at that point, what am I doing? I'm confirming what's already, I become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
because now I'm not invested in my process. I'm not recovering the way I should. I'm not training the way I should. I'm not lifting the way I should, because I've already in my mind said I can't do this, or I'm not what I thought I was, or whatever it is. The pity party kind of kicks in. So I always told people I teach perspective for a living.
No, it's huge, and those, after what I went through and was fortunate to come out on the right side of my battle, with cancer. And we know that all the stories don't end and, good, unfortunately. And, but going through some real life stuff will teach you great perspective and give you great perspective. I always had good perspective, but after that, it was like, my motto was, they can't eat you.
Right.
They can fire me, but they can't eat me. And they'd be after me, this, that, and the other, when luck was down and we were losing and it was coming down to the end. And they were like, how do you maintain this mentality and this mindset and the positivity? And I said, really? I said, we're coaching and playing a kid's game.
Right.
And there's some real life shit out there that's going on that could get you sideways. So
right.
What you're saying is exactly right. It is about perspective. We have these so what, now what moments. That I don't know if you've heard that.
Yeah,
we use that all the time. Guys that come to me and so what, now what? What do you want me to do, Charlie? Charlie Whitehurst is in at Miami. We're down to our 7th string quarterback. Everybody, Matt, Hasselbeck took over for Andrew when he went out in 15. And he went like 5-3 in 8 games, and then he's 40 years old. He's at it. And we throw Charlie out there, clipboard Jesus, and he's in for one series. He comes hobbling over, and I don't even know if we have anybody left. McAfee was our emergency. Talking about Pat, I think we have one other guy, kid from Miami, Stevie, and he goes, I think my hamstrings. I said, Charlie, what do you want me to do? So what, now what? Is it torn or is it just hurting a little bit? I'm going to be okay, coach. I'm going to be all right. He had that Southern twang from Nashville. I'm going to be okay, coach. But the long and short of it is, I always told that story about Robbie Conrad, a kid that went to Syracuse, played for the Dolphins, fell off his boat, 10 miles offshore. He's fishing by himself. Boat's on autopilot. He's got no life jacket. Got wife, 2 daughters, expecting him home for dinner. He falls in the water, boat goes one way, and he's sitting there 10 miles offshore. You talk about a so what, now what moment, What are you going to do? I always told my players that, what are you going to do? They're looking at me like, so start freaking swimming. And that's exactly what he did. He said, shoot, I'm getting my ass. And 16 hours later, he landed on the beach.
Right.
He made it. That's just, that's what you're talking about. And so what, now what? Talked about cleansing. The cleansing was always, the ABCs were accountability. The B was for buoyancy. So the buoyancy was so what, now what?
Mm-hmm.
And then the C was for cleansing. And that was a compared to what moment.
Wow. Okay.
Hey, so how bad? Okay, so I'm, camp ain't going how I want it to go. I'm second team, I'm third team. Coach is all over me. Blah, blah, blah. Pity party time. And so we talked about a cleansing, all right, how bad do you really got it? You want to open up the newspaper, put the news on or whatever. You want to see what bad is. You got full scholarship, 3 meals a day, beautiful dorm, hotel, whatever.
Yep.
You're getting a free $60,000, $70,000 education. Your girlfriend's hot as hell. And what are you bitching about?
Right.
Get out of my office.
Yeah.
So every now and then a cleansing, just a little self-check about, okay, is it really that bad? Do I really have it that bad? Because there's a lot worse things going on,
Yep.
And it's a good self-check.
I love that. So let me ask you this. Let's talk a little bit about like your leadership style. When you look at your career as a coach, and I know for me, I was only in it, 8 years. I mean, I'm still coaching on side now, but not at the same level or same degree. I know my leadership style and has changed, and the way that I coach has changed, and it develops over time, and it matures. Like, when you look back on yours, what do you think has been the biggest area that you've developed or changed in? So let me give you an example. For instance, for me, when I first got into it, I was a bull in the china shop, dude. Like just a million miles an hour, like a lot of young coaches. And I realized that, especially when I started to coach some different sports other than just football, it was like, oh, wait, this approach doesn't work with everyone. So I think the biggest thing that I learned, that I developed in my own leadership skills over the career, was empathy, and being able to be empathetic with people, and communicate that. So what do you think for you has been the biggest leadership skill that you've built or added to the toolbox, over your career, and how have you kind of changed as a leader?
I think probably we're really similar because as a young coach, volume was always at 10, and it was loud. And there was, a best drill coach in the history of drills. I had every, and then when I looked at the game, right, and watched what they were doing, I mean, they weren't doing any of that. Coach DBs, mainly my whole life, you got to be able to backpedal, plant drive, come forward, backpedal, open up and run, like, find the ball down the field. It isn't that, come up, cracker, tackle this,
Mm-hmm.
but, so figured out along the way that you don't have to be a 10, so from a communication, it's always been about relationships with me. That's never changed.
Right.
But where I grew was as a better communicator, and a better teacher,
Mm-hmm.
doing the things that you were talking about, that, one way isn't always the best way, everybody learns different. Some can handle the classroom, and some just, they no good. And it's walkthrough for this guy. It's a cut up, doing it this way. It's whatever that is, finding out what that is.
Mhm.
But always the starting point was, I'm going to get to know you. Okay. Dick Vermeil always said this. Okay. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's always stuck with me.
Yep.
I heard that a long, long time ago.
Yep.
And it's so true, because if they know you care about them and you love them, all right, and it's real and it's genuine, and it's authentic, that's where you spend your time.
Right.
Is building that relationship. And that's, I think, the biggest thing for me was, okay, on the front end, okay, let's get to know this person, what makes this guy tick, and his family and his parents and this, that, and his significant other, whatever it is. Pros, it was, their wives, their kids, and, that communication, and, doing stuff out of the blue where, like, what's this guy texting me for? And, it's this, that, just little things.
Right. Right.
So I learned with my wife, it took me, this year will be 32 years. Okay. And so, like, I finally figured it out about after 28 or 29 years. It's just little things, a little note in the, left for in the morning. I mean, just little things that make them happy. And it isn't, expensive jewelry and this, that, and that ain't got nothing to do with it. And it's so easy. She said, "You're such a dumbass. You just figure this out, So I think that's the biggest thing is, building that relationship, and, in that bond. And because once that's there, and it's like real,
Mhm.
and, now you can have conversations about anything, talk about anything,
Yep.
guy, the level of it can get heated,
Mhm.
the right place, even like a staff member, defensive staff meetings and stuff. You've been in meetings where it got up here, right?
Oh,
But
yeah.
as long as a head coach, as long as there's love in this room and we respect and love each other,
Mhm.
relationship, there's some meetings that the volume will get high. It'll get loud. And that's okay. But then somebody's got to make a decision. As a head coach, you got to make a decision. Coordinator, you got to make a decision. And when we decide on something, we shake each other's hand, and we sign off on that. And we walk out of this meeting room, and we go sell that to our players. And that can't be, running back coach goes down, and, the players all want to run, this play, and then blah, blah, blah. Well, he don't want to do that. Coach don't want to do that. So I guess we're gonna do it this way,
Right.
and they know right then and there.
Yeah. Oh
You
yeah.
just,
Oh
you
yeah.
just undermine the whole deal.
Yep. You got to sell it like it's your idea.
No, and you go in there and say, you know, this is how we're going to do it, and this is
Mhm.
why,
Yep.
this is why we're going to do it,
And
and I think that's is the things you learn all along the way is being able to sell an idea, but okay, this is why this
Mhm.
technique works, and show them,
Right.
you know.
Now with your staff, how did you handle how do you handle feedback with your guys? Were you open door policy? Were you like, hey, we're gonna do one-on-one meetings? Like what was kind of some of your tools?
Open door,
Open door. Come on
open,
and let it rip.
and then yeah, and then, again, we were gonna, because I a lot of things rolled off my tongue that I don't, not real proud of,
Right.
but you can't ever get it back.
Mhm.
So it was going to be, hey, look, something happens and I do something, somebody does something that, you know, isn't right.
Mhm.
Let's get together
Right.
and let's figure it out, and then be able to move forward. Because if you don't rip off some band-aids, and fix some things, then those wounds, they don't ever go away.
Right.
Just fester, and they just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then sometimes then it's too late, and
Right.
you can't fix that.
Mhm.
And it's like, head coach does this, and then these two guys get together, or a player comes to, not his position coach, but he comes to you as a strength coach. You touched every player.
Right.
So a lot of guys came to you and said, hey man, what the hell's wrong with this guy? Blah, 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 blah. Now you had two ways you could respond. There's a right way and a wrong way. You want to be that guy's buddy, you're going to side with him.
Right.
You want to help him and be a great leader and a great mentor, then you just say, whoa, this is not a conversation. I hear you. I feel you. But you need to go sit down with your coach right now.
Yep.
And you need to go have that conversation with him right now. Now, if you can get the whole building, the weight room, because weight room, equipment room, training room, I mean, that's where a lot of hell can break loose.
Oh, that can be the water cooler real quick.
Oh,
Real
are
quick.
you kidding me?
Real quick.
Those people down there, everybody's got to be so aligned.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you start that program, like when I got the Indy job, I said, we got the whole building together in the pavilion, and I dressed everybody, introduced the whole staff, and I just said, hey, look, everybody's job in here matters. Because when we win, it's going to be about, I don't care if you're slinging hash and cooking eggs,
Mm-hmm.
wit in the kitchen, or this guy emptying waste paper baskets. Every job matters, and it's about us. It's unity over self, and it's about everybody being selfless and doing the very best that they can do. And we're going to treat each other with that respect. And this ain't about me or that guy, that guy, that guy. It's about us.
Yep.
And that's so important in those conversations, and about guys being able to come to you,
Mm-hmm.
and air their air their feelings,
Mm-hmm.
and know that you've built a good enough relationship where they feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And they're not afraid to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's huge. That relationship's got to be so good where guys knows he's not going to be under fire,
Right.
for coming to you with something.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that plays into let me back up a little bit. Like when I look at the people and that you've been around and the people you've been influenced by, but then I also look at the progression of after you left Indy, you look at a BA's career. Like obviously, I mean, what he's done has been tremendous. Like, do you think those relationships and that type of stuff, how does that play into your ability to then develop those coaches as well? Like your ability to be able to rip that Band-Aid off and we'll just use BA as an example here and say, hey, you're not right in this situation. We need to discuss this. Like, do you feel like if you weren't able to do that, it would slow his development?
I never told a PA. he was the best. I was so lucky to have Bruce. But no, what you're saying is it goes both ways.
Mm-hmm.
because there was a lot of times where I felt like, I was right. And then you bring somebody in and you say, okay, why are we doing this, and this way when we should be? And then you hear somebody and you really get to the bottom, you drill down, figure out, well, shoot, I was wrong.
Right.
There was a lot of times where I was, and you got to have the humility to be able to have those conversations, give them out, and then accept the other criticism that's going to come back. Because everybody's going to want to know why. If they believe in themselves, and I told the assistant coach says I wanted them to challenge me. When we challenge each other, iron sharpens iron. It's just like practice, right? Like man sharpens man. So it was going to be tough in a lot of different ways. And that's the only way you get better.
Right.
And I don't want a bunch of yes men. My dad didn't want that. He wouldn't hire anybody that didn't aspire to be a head coach. He would ask them, but he didn't, but at the same time, he didn't want anybody, taking any shortcuts.
Right.
Trying to be a head coach. So along with, like you said, the empathy, the relationship, the communication, the teaching, all that stuff, but he wanted guys that aspired to be, in his role.
Right.
Because he'd get guys that were passionate, about teaching and about coaching and wanted to, not that be that, and there's some people that were okay with just, being whatever for whatever.
Right. Right. Well, Coach, I want to be aware of your time here. I want to wrap up with I got 4 quick questions for you. They're just going to be quick. Just give me the first answer that comes to your mind. Okay. So the first one, what does the word legacy mean to you?
Something that outlives you long after you're gone.
Love it. What do you want your legacy to be?
This guy was about serving others, helping others.
Love it. What do you think is the most important habit or the most positive habit that you have?
Riding my Peloton.
And what's the best piece of leadership advice you've ever received?
I've ever received? Start tough, because you can always ease up.
Love it. Well, Coach, this has been absolutely phenomenal, man. I know for me personally and selfishly, I've said before, if the rest of my business never does anything, what I've learned through doing these podcasts is more than enough payment for the rest of my life. So I can't tell you how much we appreciate you taking the time and being willing to share a little bit with us. So for these last few minutes, we'll give you the mic here and let you close it out. Any closing message you have for everybody, anything that you think would be, worth sharing, please do so. And then we'll get you out of here.
Yeah. So we talked about living in vision and not circumstance. It really came about, during my battle in 2012, and I talked to the team one time. I got out of the hospital, I got to go back, and I said, the vision I'm living is that, we're going to hoist that Lombardi, and I'm going to beat cancer, and I'm going to be around for a long, long time for my wife and my family. I'm going to walk 2 more daughters down the aisle. I'm going to get emotional here. And dance at their weddings. And that was, halfway through, my treatment. And so I think you have to have a vision, okay, of, and I go back to, Michelangelo. He had a 7-foot block of marble that he sat there and stared at day after day, month after month, until he got a vision of what he wanted David to look like. It was all in here. And so once he got that vision, he just started chipping away at that marble. And what he chipped away was anything that didn't look like David. So whatever you want your relationship to be in your life, whatever you want your room to look like, whatever position you coach, yourself, whatever it is, Dave, what you're doing with that vision, like football, like whatever's bad football, let's chip away at it. Just like he chipped away at that marble, and anything that didn't look like David, he got rid of. So anything that's getting in the way of your vision, then get it out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Coach. And again, this has been unbelievable and a solid hour for anybody. Please, reach out to me and I'll get the thank you letters to Coach, because I know this is one that's worth it. So we appreciate you again. And as always, guys, leaders are built, not born.
I just want to take a second and thank Coach Pagano again for his time. I mean, anytime you get the opportunity to sit down with somebody with 35 years of coaching experience and 20 years in the NFL, I mean, he's been an NFL head coach. It's just, there's a wealth of knowledge there. And for him to take the time to really dive into his curriculum and his philosophy when it comes to culture and implementing accountability within his teams and his staff, and some of the tools that he used to really drive those lessons home with players. And at the end of the day, like Coach said, it's all about relationships and his ability to build those relationships and build a culture off of those relationships that allowed for the highest level of accountability is something that really should be looked at and really should be understood by anybody listening to this. So again, I urge you guys, take your notes, go back through this thing, unpack it once, twice, maybe even 3 times. And again, if you like what you hear, if there's a follow-up conversation we want to have, reach out to us, man. Let's continue the conversation either on social media, on our website. Okay, join us on there. And as always, guys, leaders are built, not born.